Okay. All right. And we're waiting for Judge Jamison, but I tell you what, I was going to alternate. So I think what I'll do is just, since Judge Jamison isn't here, we'll just have you go through it all. That way you're done when you're done. And, you know, like I said, 3 minutes for an introduction, 2 minutes for the questions, which doesn't give you much time, of course. And then a closing. So
okay, sure. I'll tell you what. I mean, I do need to get to the next event, but I think if we want to wait just a minute or two to let her dial in, maybe she's having a technical issue.
She's actually in person. She's at an event in Mansfield, which is about 20 minutes away. So it seems like she's probably going over a little bit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you're all right with that. Okay.
All right.
I'll let you
Fantastic.
see me. That's me.
Hi, nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you all.
There's the crowd. Okay. I'll let you
Fantastic.
So you're not staring at blank space. We'll show the members. Okay.
Oh, all right. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you.
So go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. I am Judge Lisa Forbes from the 8th District Court of Appeals. I am happy to say that I am your endorsed Democrat. I'm sorry I can't be there in person to enjoy this meeting with you, but I am, I think as you've gathered, sort of hither and yon and trying to communicate with as many voters as possible. So I really appreciate the opportunity to use technology to be able to touch base with you all. I am, so as I said, I am your endorsed Democrat. That means I went through an independent screening committee, followed by a vote of the executive committee. And I am running for the Ohio Supreme Court. I'm running for the Supreme Court for that open seat because I want to do my part to ensure that the Supreme Court serves as an effective firewall to protect our democracy and to protect the rule of law from any kind of activist agendas. I am asking for your support. I'm asking for your vote in the upcoming primary, which, as you know, voting starts next week, as incredible as that seems. And it goes on, of course, until March 19th as the last day to vote. To earn your vote, I'd like to offer to you my experience, my professional experience, my experience in the community, my experience as a Democrat, and also my work ethic. My experience professionally is that for 27 years, I was a practicing attorney. I was a trial lawyer. So that means I was in trial courts and courts of appeals all over the state. I handled complicated, complex litigation for the vast majority of my career. And that means I learned the skills to untangle and resolve really some of the most complicated legal questions that any court has to address. I was a partner in a national law firm that had its headquarters in Columbus, and I worked out of the Cleveland office. I use the skills that I learned as a practicing attorney every day when I am working as a judge now, and I think I've honed those skills even further. My community involvement includes not only my work, my Democratic credentials, but also my work on the board at an organization that helps 15 to 20,000 Cuyahoga County residents, some of the most vulnerable residents in our community, get access to high quality healthcare, high quality Head Start, and high quality job training services, as well as residential services for youths for whom there is no other option. I've been doing that for about 15 years, and I am the chair of the board there. I am as I said, tried and true Democrat. There's a train going by. I don't know if you can hear that. But I am a lifelong Democrat. I worked on Capitol Hill when I first got out of college, and I campaigned professionally. I did that always for Democrats. Since I have been a lawyer, I have always volunteered for Democrats, trying to get them into office, just like all of you, giving my time, talent, and treasures to bring that vision to reality.
All right, thank you. Thank you. That's
okay.
That's all the time we have. That's okay, but thank you very much. So now for the questions. So the principle of home rule in Ohio allows communities to decide for themselves what is allowed within their borders. And over the past decade, the Ohio legislature has allowed home rule on things like the siting of renewable energy projects, but has made it illegal for communities to have any say in the siting of fracking wells. There's also local gun ordinances, like, for example, Columbus is suing because they say that it is violated their home rule to outlaw their, gun laws. What's the legal framework through which home rule issues should be evaluated to see if it's constitutional?
Well, here in Ohio, we somewhat, I guess, helpfully, uniquely, have a home rule amendment in our Constitution. So the home rule amendment is pretty straightforward. I'm sure you're familiar with it, given the particularity of your question. So I won't belabor that point too awful much. But and that's been around since, I believe, the 1912 Constitution, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of legislation, or excuse me, a lot of litigation, that's gone under the bridge. The home rule amendment has a three-part test that gets applied by courts who are doing it correctly. The first question is this a general, is this a matter that is the exercise of a municipality's police powers? The next is does it conflict with the state law? And the last question is the state law a general law of the state? And really, most litigation hinges on the question of whether there's a conflict. And I'm happy to say I just recently, in fact, issued a dissent in a case in which I found, or I disagreed with my colleagues, that a municipal ordinance regarding the responsibilities of a motorist in a traffic accident were governed by state law. And rather, I felt that there was room for the municipality to have a fully enforceable municipal ordinance that was different than this state law. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's a conflict. And when I say there's a lot of litigation about what constitutes a conflict, I mean there's a lot of litigation. And so, forgive me if by going through the statute, I belabored points about which you are already fully informed, but you really can't discuss how you would conduct a home rule analysis without talking about that very well-worn test.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if that actually gets at the heart of the question that you were trying to ask.
Yes.
But as a judge, that is what I do is, find the tests, apply the tests.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Judge Jamison did just arrive, but I think we'll continue the format if it's all right with you, that we'll just have you go through it and then give your closing, and then you can be on your way to your next place, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
However you all would prefer to receive the information, I am happy to give it.
Okay. All right. So the second question is, currently in Texas, the governor is challenging the preeminence of the federal government on immigration issues. And in the Ohio legislature, there's a House Bill 51 waiting to be brought to the floor of the House for the vote. And if it should become law, it'll prohibit public officers from enforcing federal firearms laws. What are the legal questions surrounding that?
So many legal questions. First, I have to say, this is kind of a tricky question, and I appreciate the way that you formulated it for us, because I'm sure you're fully aware that judges cannot prejudge a matter that might come before the court. And so it's difficult for us sometimes to answer substantive legal questions. And this is particularly challenging here because we don't even have a fully formed statute. We just have a proposal. And another sort of bedrock principle that judges are guided by is that we don't give advisory opinions. So unless there is an actual controversy that appears before a court, the courts do not opine. And there's no actual controversy here because we don't actually even have a statute. But some of the questions that House Bill 51 raises I agree with your opening line there. I think one of the significant questions is the supremacy clause. What federal laws are impacted by House Bill 51, or what federal laws does House Bill 51 attempt to supplant? I actually wrote my note when I was on law review in law school on the supremacy clause. Wrote it about campaign finance and campaign finance reform, but the supremacy clause and federal preemption are obviously very complex, complicated legal principles, but certainly any effort to try to limit the federal government's ability to enforce its laws would bump up against the supremacy clause. You know, and we have task forces that are routinely deployed. For example, the Marshal Service uses local sheriff's deputies, or they work in conjunction with one another to bring fugitives in. Well, oftentimes fugitives are felons who are recidivists. And there are gun laws incorporated there. Would those fugitive task forces be allowed to operate? What kind of impairment would that give to our society, really, the broader society, and the ability to enforce laws? I think there's an enormous number of questions presented, both legal and from a policy standpoint, that by House Bill 51.
It would take much longer than 2 minutes to answer, for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well,
and you know, judges aren't policy makers per se. Yeah, you know, obviously the way that laws get enforced and applied and interpreted does touch upon and implicate policy, and the way the law moves and grows implicates policy, but primarily our oath as a judge is to uphold and enforce the laws of the state of Ohio and the Ohio and federal Constitution.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So now for your closing, just, what are your plans to beat the Republicans?
Well, I think that I do have the experience, both electorally and professionally, not only to do the job as the Supreme Court Justice, but also to get elected. When I was elected to the Court of Appeals, I won a 4-way primary in which I was outspent by $100,000. And I won with 56% of the vote. I did that by being clever, crafty, nimble, and effective. And when I had my general election, when I was elected my first time, I won with 71% of the vote, and I brought to bear the same skills. I will do the same thing running in the fall. I told you that my hard work is one of the things I have to offer to you as I ask for your vote. And I learned my hard work from my family. I'm the granddaughter of immigrants. My grandparents came here and became coal miners in Western Pennsylvania. I'm a first-generation college graduate, and I am standing before you as a candidate for the Ohio Supreme Court. That is the type of American opportunity that my grandparents came here looking for, and that I have been graced to have found. And so in this race, I'm as trying to demonstrate to you by all of the places that I am going and all of the people I am talking to, that I will bring hard work, not only to win this election, but to do the job. So again, I am Judge Lisa Forbes, and I ask for your vote in the contested primary this spring. And as your endorsed Democrat, I certainly would love to answer any questions that you may have. Whether that be now or Larry, you can share my contact information, and please feel free to reach out to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm sorry that it didn't quite work out as planned, and I also apologize for not being there in person. But I look forward to meeting you in the near future as the campaigns progress.
Okay. Thank you for your time and energy.
Oh, thank you. Have
All
a great
right.
night, everybody.
All right. Goodbye. All right. Hi, Judge.
Hi.
How are you?
How's everyone?
So let me turn the camera on you. So Judge Jamison, how was the soul food dinner?
I didn't eat.
I hope you were running here.
What? I had a couple of other places to be, so that was a stop in between being here tonight. But thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you tonight. I was your endorsed candidate in 2022, so I've met many of you. You know my story. I am a coal miner. My grandparents, paternal and maternal grandfathers, my father, my uncles, all of us grew up in West Virginia. I left working in social services after 3 years and then went in to be an underground coal miner. I am a member of the United Mine Workers of America, and I'm still an associate member today. I moved to Columbus in 1983, so I've been there a little over 40 years. When I came, I became an office manager for an insurance agency, and he said, "You're doing such a great job. Why don't you start your own agency?" And I did that. I did that for 16 years, owned and operated my own business, doing all types of accounts receivable, doing the reconciliation of the books, hiring my own staff, training, and running a full service multi-line insurance agency with one of the larger companies. I'm not gonna name names, but I guess you could find it. I had an all-state insurance agency for a number of years. In 1990, Allstate came in, changed our contracts, and basically everybody that was 40 and up got pushed out. So I did file an EEOC complaint. There was a huge lawsuit that they just paid a few years ago that I was not eligible for because I had moved on. And you know, once you mitigate your damages, I mitigated my damages by attending Capital Law School, graduating, starting my own practice. And I was first elected to the bench in 2012. I was definitely outspent, but I won my first election 55-45. I ran for re-election in 2018 on the juvenile and domestic court, so I have been a trial court judge as well. In 2018, again, I was outspent, but I won 60-40. Then in 2020, the same year that Judge Forbes was elected, I ran for the Court of Appeals in 2020. Again, I was outspent, but I won 53-47%. So I do have a winning track record. The only loss that I have was in 22, and I'm here to say that was not okay. So I am running a contested primary for various reasons. I did not get the endorsement this time for whatever reason, but I am in the room because I believe that I laid a foundation in 22 to build on. I gained 43.1% of the vote in 22, 1,750,500 votes, 1,750,000, something like that, votes, raised almost $900,000, which is almost unheard of in a Supreme Court race. But I believe that with the work I've already done, and the qualifications that I have, that I should be on the ballot for this contested primary, and hopefully at in the middle of March, I'll be your November nominee. So I'll tell you a little bit about the things that I did while I was on the bench in juvenile court. How many of you, well, I ain't gonna ask how many have ever had a child support issue, but child support kept coming before my court. People couldn't meet their court orders because they were unemployed. I reached out to Child Support Enforcement's director, and we brought in community organizations into the court and allowed men and women that did not have employment the opportunity to go into training programs, to go into education. And I brought in some of the unions, and we did job applications for them, and we helped people find jobs. you can't meet a court order if you don't have the ability to meet. So I thought, knowing what it costs the taxpayer, in Franklin County, it costs almost $100 a day to incarcerate someone. A contempt is normally for 30 days. That's $3,000 that we're paying to house someone that when they get out, they still won't have a job. So we looked at the savings. We started it, I got elected in 13. We started in August of 14. When we looked at the savings at the end of 15, we had saved Franklin County $400,000 from not incarcerating people that could not pay. So I'm innovative, I'm creative, and I'm going to help save money where I can. The other thing I've done, I've partnered with OSU Social Work College and brought in interns to help those men and women that did not have all of the abilities. They had some addiction problems, or they had mental health services. They would come in and do a small assessment to see if there were other services that they were eligible for. So I believe that if we wrap services around people and give them opportunity, that people can recover, and I believe that they become better members of society and they become better parents. When people can take care of themselves, they can do more for their children. So I did that in juvenile court. I was there for a little over 8 years. Since I've been on the Court of Appeals, the first year I came, we did a pro se handbook to help men and women that are trying to do their own appeals and don't have legal counsel. Appeals are very expensive, and everybody can't afford counsel, but they all have a right to come in. So we put together a pro se handbook so that if you come to file your own appeal, you can get that handbook and you can find out how many pages should it be? What do I need to cite? You know, it just gives you an outline so that you can prepare your own brief. But those are some of the things that I believe are necessary to help everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
I guess you said I've talked enough. Okay. I'm sorry.
I didn't want to give you too much more time than
Okay.
Judge Forbes,
Okay.
but I appreciate
Well, I
that.
came in person.
Yes, indeed. Indeed you did.
And I was just here Monday. in
That's
person.
right. Women's caucus.
Same distance from Columbus as it is from Cleveland. Anyway,
And eventually we'll talk about who you're gonna vote for, so.
yeah, I'll tell you who I'm voting for. I'm voting for Joe Biden. He's the one on the ticket. I don't care if he's 100. He's the one on the ticket.
All right, and now for the question round.
Okay.
You ready?
I am.
Okay, so the principle of home rule in Ohio allows communities to decide for themselves what is allowed within their borders.
Mhm.
And of course, over the past decade, the Ohio legislature has allowed different things and home rule and things like citing renewable energy projects, but making it illegal for any sort of rules about fracking. There's also city of Columbus is suing
Yes, they are.
about their gun laws. They say that the legislature's banning them or saying that it's illegal is violating home rule. What is the legal framework through which home rule issues should be evaluated to see if it's constitutional?
He did give us a law school question. There is tests that you have to do to determine whether or not the law abuts a state law. But we do know that if it is a municipality, that the state law is supreme over a municipality. We are suing in Columbus over gun control. I won't opine how I think that's going to go, but there is statutes that limit what these cities can do. That is not one of the things that cities can limit when it comes to natural resources. It is not one of the things that they can limit. And we know we have great problems with fracking in the eastern part of the state. That is some of it's under OSHA, which is federal. Some of it is under the Department of Natural Resources, and where there's a conflict, the federal will preempt the state. So and the state preempts the municipality. Because the supremacy clause of the Constitution impacts how we interrelate in these cases.
Thank you. So that kind of rolls into the second question, which is federal supremacy. Do you want to go on about that?
Well, I actually represented people in immigration court. There is no state immigration court. The only immigration court is federal. So there is no conflict in the immigration piece. My husband was a deputized marshal. He worked for Franklin County Sheriff's Department. They don't go out under Franklin County to do those kind of task force. They actually get deputized as marshals before they go out. So they are operating under federal law. They are not operating under state or county law when they're on those task force. I know that for a fact. The supremacy clause, I have written a case when I was in domestic court where we have a rule about, in the civil rules, Ohio Civil Rules of Procedure, about how an action or a complaint begins. If you go to file a lawsuit, you do service under Civil Rule 4. However, if the person you're suing lives in a country that operates under the Hague Convention, you have to do your service through the Hague Convention. This is one of the first cases that I had when I went to juvenile court. The person that was filing for the divorce did not serve the woman that lived in India through the Hague Convention, but he tried to do it through Ohio Civil Rules and send it through FedEx. That was not sufficient for the divorce. However, the judge that was on the bench before me allowed him to proceed. So I had a motion for what's called a 60B, which is a motion to vacate the judgment that was already done so that the action would start over and he would have to serve her through the Hague Convention. I wrote the decision that he failed in his service, that the Hague Convention had supremacy over the Ohio Civil Rules of Procedure. They took it to the 10th District. 10th District said I was right. Then they went to the Ohio Supreme Court. They said I was right. And then they tried to go to the US Supreme Court. And the US Supreme Court said, we're not taking your case. So I know that supremacy clause is going to be upheld in any situation currently.
Okay.
Now, if they secede from the union, they might have an opportunity to do something else.
Okay.
But as long as we're in the union.
Well, since, we have time here, is anybody else have any questions for the judge?
You can ask whatever you want. I'm an open book.
I think the same when you asked about defeating the Republicans, you're gonna have a D next to your name on the ballot.
I did in 22.
That's true.
So I've been through that and thinking about how we did the race, we all ran as a slate. We ran very closely together, which is great as far as us working together. But what happened, Maryland had a demographic or a voter base in Cincinnati. I had one in Franklin County. Jennifer had run statewide, but she had a great base in Columbiana County. Because we were running so closely together, we didn't split up enough to get to the voters, our voting base in each part of the state. I think if we had split up a little and Maryland had maybe worked the southern end more, and I'd worked in the middle and Jennifer had worked this northeast side, that we would have had a greater return by splitting up a little bit. So that's one thing I thought about. We didn't do hardly any digital. We did a lot of postcards. We did a a lot of in-persons, we did a lot of things like that, but we didn't do as much digital as I believe we could have done. I'm sorry.
No TikTok, huh?
No, ma'am, we don't have TikTok yet. And all the young people are on TikTok. I did an interview in Cincinnati a few weeks ago, and it's on TikTok because the young people are saying, sending it to me, and I'm like, I don't have TikTok. So now I gotta get TikTok. But I think if we had done a little bit more of that, the other thing that I know, I don't know that we did enough door knocking in the areas where people don't turn out. So, and I think that was a mistake. Because, you know, people start to feel taken for granted. Nobody's asking me. So why should I keep voting for people that don't even know I exist? And I think that would have been helpful if we had done a little canvassing in some of the low turnout areas. Especially in your major urbans that we were really counting on to vote. And I'll just tell you this little tidbit, Cleveland, inner city, 18%.
Turnout?
18%.
Wow.
In 20 and in 22.
Wow.
So that means nobody has talked to these voters that they have elected. None of their elected officials are talking to them. Franklin County's turnout was a little lower than normal in 22. So I looked at the numbers. We had, I think, 73% turnout in 20, but only 59% in 22. So that means somewhere between 20 and 22, nobody that got elected in 20 talked to the people because the number went down. So, or there was nothing, or the message that we were sending out did not resonate with them. So there was some disconnect there. So that's my thought.
Well, I know there was plenty of registration efforts in Cleveland area, but
But registration is not voting.
exactly.
And if I register and then you don't talk to me again,
Right.
why should I come out? Or you're talking about something that's not relevant to me. Now this year, when I make it past the primary, we have the ballot initiative to go to $15 an hour for minimum wage. So that might get some people out, but then it might not, because after 2020, we know that we can't hire people. They won't come out to work. So I'm trying to figure out, what did you do and learn in 2020 that you didn't know before? Because now you're not working in the workforce. You're doing something to generate income, but it's not getting you to come back in the workforce. So I don't know if the $15 ballot initiative is enough to get them out. But I guess we'll see. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that people aren't talking to that group of folks?
Do I think they are or are not?
They are not talking to those folks.
I am almost positive they are not.
Finish, I'm slow.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Are they not talking because they don't know what the issues are that will resonate? Or are they not talking because they don't feel that they're worth talking to?
I really don't know why they're not talking. But another judge gave the analogy, so I'll give you this. If you are dating someone that never calls you, do you call them or do you just let it go? So it's kind of like the voter that votes for you. If I vote for you, I want to hear from you sometime. You know, do a town hall, do a candidate meet, do something, because I voted for you.
What's keeping them from doing it?
I have no idea.
Did you go talk to them?
Did I go talk to their
Folks in Cleveland?
elected officials? And that's what I was saying. We really did not do that kind of grassroots effort.
You gonna do it this time?
I'm already doing it. I'm already doing it. I'm already doing some stuff to touch the people that didn't vote. Because I think it's important. If we got people that are registered to vote that are not coming out, then we're not meeting their needs somehow, and we're not messaging something that they need to know.
Are they coming to venues that you've identified, or are they not coming?
I think the mayor only had one, well, he did have a, Cleveland Town Hall meeting that was packed. But I don't know if that's the people that always vote,
Yeah.
or if those are the people that don't vote. So I think that when we look at what's happening, we look at the economy is important to people. Gerrymandering has been extremely important, but we didn't really hear a lot about that in 22. When we had a chance to flip the court and actually be there to review maps.
Do you think people are hearing it now? I know that people are out there, but do you think the message is coming out there?
I haven't really heard it. I don't know, but I don't listen to a whole lot of news, but I haven't heard much about gerrymandering. But I have heard a lot about the economy. Ohio is behind in job growth, behind the national average. That's true.
Isn't there a petition out for gerrymandering?
Yes.
To put it on the
Yes,
ballot?
yes. People, not
Citizens,
politicians.
yeah,
Citizens, not politicians.
That's why I'm asking, because
Yeah.
I'm working.
Now, that's out
I'm
there.
not getting the feeling that people really are getting.
I don't think that people really understand how gerrymandering dilutes their vote. That's part of the issue. They really don't understand. When I looked at that person that's over in District 4, that's been named in several different scandals. But when you look at how the census, a lot of people didn't do the census, but they have like 5 prisons in his district. He got to count all those prisoners, even though he will never give services to them, because when they get released, they go back to their own county.
Right.
So when you have those kind of issues that people didn't really even understand the impact of the census, and I think that's because we don't have civics in our classes anymore. We don't teach the younger people why it's important.
Do you think that that's maybe a job that candidates like you can take on?
Well, I already do candidate forums
I bet
in
you
my county. But what I would like to see, if I'm elected to the Supreme Court, I would like to see the Supreme Court spend some money on bringing in students for civics courses. I mean, if you're not gonna teach it in school, somebody's gotta do it.
Yeah.
I would like to see some money spent on that. I don't know if it's in the budget. I don't know if we have to go back to legislature to get it done. The other thing, I do a lot of mentoring with OSU and other universities. So when they graduate from OSU, or I have one student that's in his last semester now that's coming in for an internship. They get to see from the inside how the court works. They get to go over to the trial courts and observe trials. So they get to see how the juvenile court works, what services are available, so that while they're deciding to go to law school, they can see how the law is actually applicable. Because the law is really applicable to everything you do, whether you're purchasing a house, renting buying a cell phone, all of its contracts. So the law is applicable in everything you go to do, whether you have a medical power of attorney, do you have end of life documents, what do you have? The law is applicable to all parts of our life. So I really have been, I had 3 interns last semester. I got 2 right now, 1 coming in the summer. So I make myself available. I did it in juvenile court, still do it in court of appeals.
Make a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
Try Cleveland State.
Well, nobody's gonna drive from Cleveland State to Columbus
No.
for an internship. That's unpaid.
You might not have to drive them. Just think about it.
We're not, I talked to the Chief Justice about some of these things. We have some, there's an 8th District Court of Appeals in Cleveland. I got 2 law schools right in Columbus.
Maybe you're not the person to do it, but maybe you're the person to start.
Oh, make the suggestion.
That's what,
I can make the suggestion.
because there are some faculty members at Cleveland State, particularly there's a provost there. And provost, the associates, can really get some of the folks out
Okay.
and give a venue for that kind of work.
Well, that's what I would like to see happen. I know that the court does sometimes go to different counties and hold court, but it would be nice if we had interns in those counties when you go there, that they get an opportunity to work with the justices, to set up the court,
Maybe
those kind of
maybe a
things.
bigger vision of this whole process that was successful for you with Columbus. Could help. This one.
Plus, I'm an adjunct over at Capitol. Yes, sir.
Are you okay with that?
We had time.
Yeah.
In 2005, a man, it was a religious book, but where it said, if you want to walk on water, you got to get out of the boat. And I mentioned that because, to 2020 was the big, everybody coming back in because of COVID and so on. I think my wife and I discovered that once we started getting out and doing things again, we were much more active than just sitting at home and watching the TV and reading the articles and so on. So we've got to get people out and get them interested and get them involved.
And it's very tough because, you know, even some of the state employees did not go back to the office. I had a girlfriend, she works for one of the larger banks. They shut down multiple offices and have all their people working at home. So the challenge is we have to knock on their door.
Yeah.
We have to go out. Now, I was not one of those people that got to stay home in 2020 because I was still in juvenile court. And we have hearings that have to be held within 72 hours. So somebody had to be there to hear those emergencies. Civil protection orders went up astronomically. We were doing those. So we were not able to stay at home. We were open. And the civil cases, we did a lot of them by Zoom, but the delinquency, abuse, neglect cases, all those, we had to be there for.
Yeah, you know, if the courts were more open electronically, maybe some of that nurturing could take place without a lot of writing.
Well, our court, they voted not to do
I
electronic
understand what you're
hearings.
saying. I hear you,
And it's a vote.
but that's a
We're
problem.
still a democracy there. We don't do them electronically unless unless we have a weather warning or something like that. They do not want to do electronic. So, yes, ma'am.
What part do you think media, any media, I'm not picking on a particular person or a particular media group, but what part does media do or not do in terms of letting people know where they can get the information they need, how to go about finding out about whatever, or having, you know, the news cycle is the news cycle. Whatever happened yesterday is old news. So you just, it is constantly flipping over, and it's hard to have a situation where you're looking at something and you're going, well, I need to know more about that, but then you can't figure out where to go. The news cycle flipped, and now that's like old news and nobody mentions it anymore. And it's difficult.
All of your media is controlled by 6 major companies.
I understand that.
So, I've asked that question myself because we have so many things that President Biden has done that have never been in the news. So I don't know why his press secretary cannot get him more press.
Okay.
He's done a lot in his presidency that has never gone out in media.
But it has a lot to do with even primary races and local races, and they just don't seem to always be, unless it's controversial, they don't care to talk about it.
But that's
what people tune in for.
They tune in for the negatives. They don't tune in for the positives. Do y'all have a local channel, like a PBS or Any of those?
We have a TV station.
Yeah, that gives the local. They used to run like things during the day where it just ran. I don't know if they still.
Like a scroller.
Yeah, it was a scroller to tell you about county meetings or things happening in the city. Do they?
Yeah, we're fortunate to have it. There's not, I don't know how many people actually watch it.
Oh.
We have an electronic newspaper that people pick up digitally that
Mhm.
is very popular.
Yeah, but yes, it's sensationalism sells papers.
Well, then you need to be a little more sensational. So you get their attention.
Try it. Did you
Yes.
see I put fur on my sleeve? No.
Yes.
Any other questions for Judge Jamison? Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm asking for your vote. I know I'm not the endorsed candidate, but an endorsement is a recommendation. I'm asking you to go to vote TeriJamison.com. I do have some endorsements. I'm endorsed by the Working Families Party. I'm endorsed by Laborers International Local 500. I'm endorsed by well, there's an endorsement that's gonna come out tomorrow that I'm not supposed to talk about until they release it. But I have picked up some endorsements even after I did not get ODP's endorsement based on the race that I've already won. So I'm just asking you for your vote. Look me up, give it some thought.